I'm Florence Grace Adongo, Director for Water Resources Management in the Ministry of Water and Environment. As a directorate, our main responsibility is to ensure that water resources are managed and developed in a sustainable manner so as to ensure that all the different sectors get the necessary support to use the water in a more sustainable manner. And to ensure that we have water available for the present and future generation. Management in the Ministry of Water and Environment. As a directorate, our main responsibility is to ensure that water resources are managed and developed in a sustainable manner so as to ensure that all the different sectors get the necessary support to use the water in a more sustainable manner and to ensure that we have water available for the present and future generation. The beginning of the thought on the Water Resources Institute goes back to 2003 when the Water Resources Management Reform Studies was undertaken. During that reform studies, a number of investigations on the challenges and opportunities available to improve on the water resources management and development came up. One of the key areas that was identified was the issue of human resource capacity in management and development of the water resources, as well as lack of awareness on water resources management issues in this country. So benchmarking and with the local problems that we are facing, it was very necessary that we have a one-stop center where we can bring the different water users and stakeholders to either dialogue or discuss issues of water resources development and management so that we have sustainable development of these finite water resources. So we are happy that this time the Water Resources Institute will be launched on the 21st of March 2018. This is going to be a very important institution and will also create a good platform for think tanks, water professionals, environment professionals, economists to come and exchange views on how best to manage and develop our water resources.
And we have worked with a number of partners to move this idea forward. We have worked with WaterAid, we have worked with FAO, we have worked with World Bank, and they have supported us to get the idea into concrete action. And the Institute is going to be looking at 4 things. Basically, we will be looking at applied training, it will be looking at applied research, it will be looking at dialogue, and it will also be looking at outreach and documentation. We don't have mechanism right now for dialogue with the people outside the sector. We don't have mechanisms for putting all the information about the sector together and making it available to the users, the stakeholders. We have also not been having mechanisms for undertaking research that is targeted to our needs and concretizing the research ideas into action. Many people do research, they do applied research, but this research doesn't inform policy.
The Water Resource Institute is a point that brings us together to kind of bring together applied research, to combine that with applied learning, capacity development within the sector. Sector, I mean the ministry, the private sector, and also us as the NGOs, and make sure that all our efforts are leading us to realize the SDG 6 aspiration, where everyone, everywhere, has access to water, sanitation, and hygiene.
The trainers will be people from ourselves, there will be people from the civil society, from the academic institutions, from the private sector, and from relevant government agencies. As we enter into partnerships with organizations outside Uganda, they will help us to bring in international best practice and concretize the idea of the Institute. We have created a space for people who have retired from government, from NGOs, from the private sector, academic institutions, to come and contribute. We want to have a partnership arrangement where any partner can come and actually utilize the facilities of the Institute and be able to conduct the trainings, conduct applied research, conduct dialogues, and also even utilize the information that we have in the sector. We have an online water quality monitoring equipment set up in this building that people will look at as a training event. We are also setting up a modeling unit in here. But around here we also have a meteorological station which people will actually use. We have a groundwater monitoring station that people will use to run issues to do with groundwater. Then close by we have a surface water monitoring station. And not far from here we also have a meteorological training center that will be accessible. We also have a national water treatment plant where they are pumping water close by. And we believe that this will enable us to save costs on hiring hotels, but also enable to train more people at a reasonable cost. Once we have the Institute up and running and people are taking advantage of it, the sector will not be the same. We want to call upon other partners out there that can support the Institute to become more operational. You come and join us. The space is open, and we believe that good morning, everybody. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you to this 10th Water Resources Institute monthly webinar. I hope all of you are doing well. We will start and the other colleagues will join us. I'm called Dr. Kalisti Ndimugaya, Commissioner for Water Resources Planning and Regulation, the Ministry of Water and Environment. On behalf of the Water Resources Institute and the Ministry of Water and Environment in general, I want to formally welcome you and thank you for sparing time to come and join us in this webinar. For today, we are going to be looking at the issues of flooding and how they have been addressed. In one of the areas where flooding has been a recurrent issue, in Nyamwamba Catchment in Kasese, the Ministry of Water and Environment has been doing work there in collaboration with a number of partners. And for this webinar, we are going to hear from Dr. Guma Brian Emmanuel, who is the Principal Water Resources Management, but is also a team leader for Albert Water Management Zone with headquarters in Fort Portal. And he will be taking us through the work that is being done and has been done to address the challenges of flooding. He will give us his presentation. Then after the presentation, we'll have issues for clarification, questions, and any suggestions. Dr. Brian Guma has over 14 years of experience in management of water and environment resources and protection of water resources and their catchments. So he will be leading us in this session, but there will also be other colleagues online that may come in to provide any further information or respond to some questions as may be needed. Let me now take this opportunity to invite Dr. Guma Brian Emmanuel to take the floor and take us through his presentation. And I want to encourage all of you, mute your mics so that we don't cause any problems. And I want to request our IT, Francis, keep watch so that we don't get noise. You can already start posting questions, comments in the chat as the presentation is progressing, but we shall have opportunities at the end of the presentation for comments, questions, and discussion. So again, I want to appeal for your support in ensuring that this webinar is run successfully. So thank you very much, and over to you, Dr. Brian.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Callist, for that humbling introduction. Let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
You can put in full presentation mode. We see it, but it is not yet in full presentation mode. Okay, it is okay now. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Callist. I'm going to take you through how we have been addressing the issue or the challenge of flooding within the Nyamwamba catchment. That has been a very big concern, not only to the ministry, but to the country at large. My title is Addressing Challenges of Flooding of River Nyamwamba through a Catchment-Based Water Resources Management Model. As part of the presentation outline, I'll take you through the background of IWRM, how we started the creation of water management zones, but the focus of today's presentation will be on the Nyamwamba, and then why did we actually go there? That is the rationale. And then what are the flood mitigation strategies that we adopted as a ministry to address some of these flooding issues and scenarios within the Nyamwamba catchment? And then what are those key lessons that we have drawn from implementing the catchment management model within the Nyamwamba? So that will be the final part of my presentation. As part of the background, the country adopted IWRM as an approach it adopted IWRM, first of all, as an approach for coordinated development of water and related resources to maximize economic and social welfare. So IWRM is a multi-sectoral or multi-stakeholder approach that is aimed at having concerted effort in addressing water resources challenges at the catchment level, but also at the lowest level. So IWRM is a tool, is a driver in addressing some of these water resources management challenges that the country adopted. And through that, the country was delineated into 4 water management zones. We have Albert that sits in Fort Portal, we have Choga that sits in Mbale, we have Upper Nile that sits in Mira, and Victoria that sits in Mbarara. So these water management zones follow hydrological boundaries, and it is now that IWRM, that principles that we are trying to actually use at water management zone level in addressing some of these critical challenges that include flooding, that include drought. These are some of the issues that affect water resources. And to zoom in into the Albert Water Management Zone, it covers about more than 60 districts, stretches all the way from Waise in Kampala up to Bweramule, and then from Nyoya up to Tisoro in the south. So Nyamwamba catchment drains into the Edward Basin that eventually drains into the Semuliki, coming up into Lake Albert. Kafu drains into Albert, Kiliandongo drains into Albert, and then also have the Albert Basin that directly drains into Lake Albert. So those are the 4 major water basins within the Albert Water Management Zone. Be more specific for the Nyamwamba catchment. Nyamwamba catchment is part of the Rwenzori Mountains that is shared between Uganda and DRC. And from the past Nyamwamba has actually had devastating floods. We have about 9 major floods that have occurred since 1966, but the most recent have occurred since 2013. From 2013, we've had more than 5 major floods, and with the most recent of 2023 that happened in June, that happened on the 20th of June this year. And of course, with that implementation of catchment-based water resource management as a model of remediating the impacts of climate change has drawn attention across the globe and be more focused within the Nyamwamba catchment, where we have actually adopted catchment-based water resource management as a measure to attenuate the impacts of flooding within the catchment. Why Nyamwamba? Over the past decade, since 2013, the Nyamwamba floods have led to the devastation, have led to the damage of more than 30 villages, have led to the destruction of roads, have led to the destruction of houses, and this has actually led to a lot of economical loss. It has led to loss of life, environmental losses, but as well as cultural losses, where we've had sacred trees being swept away within the Nyamwamba Valley. And this is quite a very negative and big impact within the cultural significance in the Nyamwamba Valley. And if the valley was left untamed, first of all, there were estimates by 2050, there were going to be economic losses ranging from 638 to roughly $1.2 billion. So if the flooding was left untamed, if nothing was being done, so these were the projected economic losses by 2050 within the Nyamwamba Valley. The Nyamwamba Valley originates from the Rwenzori Mountains, with the rainfall as the principal feeder of water within the river valley. And as water flows all the way from the Rwenzori Mountains near Klembi, here we can actually see water flowing within the mining offices. The mining offices were put as a result of diversion of the river. They wanted to create more office space, and the river was actually pushed at the periphery of the mountain. Originally, the river used to pass through that valley. So whenever it rains, and when the valley is highly sedimented or silted, water finds itself running through its original course. So the channel that we are dealing with is an artificialized channel, where the waters were actually diverted towards the mountain, towards the foothill of the Rwenzoris at the sides of the mountain to create more office space. So that is the first pictorial showing. This was around 2013. After the sedimentation, the siltation of the river valley, within a slight rainfall, it would actually lead water flowing in its original course. So that was on the upstream pictorial, and then in the midstream below the former hospital, that's also a picture that actually shows within a slight rainfall, these are highly degraded river banks. So within a slight rainfall, most of the waters would keep on scouring the river bank and leading to its collapse, and subsequently leading to siltation of the river valley, of the river. And then this is a pictorial showing the downstream. The downstream, whenever it used to rain in the past, because the river banks were not stabilized, most of the waters would actually get highly silted, and this would actually cause flooding further down below the bridge, the Kasese Fort Portal Bridge. This is a pictorial showing flooding of houses in the Kanyangeya village. So as water as drains in the upstream part of the mountain, and once the river is not maintained, it causes the impacts of a slight increase in the amount of rainfall, causes flooding further down within the Kanyangeya village. So what are some of the causes of the flooding? Now, the rainfall conditions triggering the flooding. Most of the rains coming in from the Rwenzori Mountains have been intense and shorter. And this has been, of course, pointed to the impacts of climate change within the Rwenzori Mountains, having shorter but highly intense rains coming in at a flash and causing these flash floods within the valley. But also, we also we've also put in mind that the catchment has been highly degraded. We have had some of the drivers for the degradation where we've had increased population pressure that has caused land use changes, and then also fires within the catchment. This actually increases the velocity of water flowing through the river valley and causing flooding. Most of the water is not retained during the heavy rainfalls, and most of the water flows very fast within the river valley, causing flooding. And then also having in mind that the original Nyamwamba River channel was actually diverted to create space for mining offices. So whenever the water volumes increase, the river often finds back into its natural course. And putting in mind that the river used to be maintained during the active mining days within the Nyamwamba Valley. When the Canadians were operating the mines, they used to maintain it almost after every month. Whenever it used to rain slightly, they used to remove the sediments within the river valley and have it fully maintained. But ever since the mining operation ceased within the valley, there has been a sediment or boulder build up within the channel, and this has exacerbated the flooding scenario within the Nyamwamba. So of course, what have we done as a ministry, as what was the strategy in addressing the flooding within the Nyamwamba Valley? First of all, we started by developing a catchment management plan, following the principles of catchment-based water resources management. And this was developed by a project that was being funded by ADB that was quite comprehensive, where the lowest people were heavily consulted, providing their insights into some of the causes of the flooding within the river valley. So this is quite a comprehensive document that was developed by the ministry, and it's the basis that we used to implement the catchment management measures as a way of remediating the impacts of flooding within the river valley. And part of the implementation of the catchment management measures was funded by the World Bank and the Integrated Water Management Development Project. And some of the strategies that we used, of course, were stakeholder engagements. This is something very critical in catchment-based water resources management. You have to fully consult the stakeholders all the way from the grassroots. And this was an approach that was highly taken into account. And then also brought in the structural measures, the river maintenance measures, and then also implemented the catchment management measures within the river valley. But as well as also trying to develop an early warning system whereby we now get communication with the set of equipment that has been installed within the Rwenzori Mountains, trying to forecast the flooding within the river valley. It is a simple early warning system that has been put in place. Like I'd mentioned, IWRM is highly stakeholder driven. The first picture shows the mayor of the Kasese municipality. First of all, creating sensitization on the buffer zone. The River Nyamwamba has a 30-meter buffer zone. Is a 30-meter buffer zone river. So most of the communities neighboring the river were highly sensitized on the essence of having the 30 meters fully demarcated and also restored to ensure that the impacts of flooding do not affect the people neighboring the river. So the second picture shows the municipality environmental officer sensitizing on the importance of bamboo in stabilizing the river banks. The last picture shows the last pictures shows one sensitization at community level. So how would we of course improve people's livelihood? It was centered around that. And the next picture, this was more in the Catchment Management Committee meeting that was set up by the ministry. The River Nyamwamba, of course, as part of the strategies, as part of the means of ensuring proper stakeholder coordination, and part of the underlying in having catchment-based water resource management fully followed. A catchment management committee is usually formed guide implementation. So here, the Catchment Management Committee was deliberating on key issues affecting water resources within Nyamwamba Valley, but also guided throughout the implementation of the different catchment remedial measures that were implemented. Starting with the structural maintenance, where the River Valley, first of all, this was quite very critical. Some sections of the river were widened and cleaned up, and also had some sections within the River Valley where we had gabions were constructed. We strengthened the river banks using cyclopean concrete. It was a new technology that we have used as a ministry in trying to stabilize riverbanks. Cyclopean concrete had never been used within the country, but in the Nyamwamba Valley, it was the first, and it actually performed its function. The pictorials show before the cleaning of the river valley how the sediment built up had affected the flow. And the second picture, this was during the cleanup of the river valley using excavators, where most of the excess boulders were actually removed from the river valley. So there's been a lot of river training and maintenance and cleaning within the Nyamwamba Valley. And the third picture showing, of course, trying to have the cyclopean concrete fully developed. So the pictures show where we've had, this is below the bridge in Kilembe, where it was a critical hotspot area where the river bank was fully stabilized with cyclopean concrete, and above we had gabions put in place. And the river maintenance was at critical hotspot areas, and this was geared in protecting critical infrastructure, communities. So these physical structures were put at critical hotspot areas at about 5.4 kilometers within the Nyamwamba Valley. This is a video that shows that was a video that showed channeled the channeled flow, and this was a result of having the cyclopean concrete fully built and established below the bridge. And previously, where we used to have before the cyclopean concrete, maybe I would request Francis to play a video that shows flow within the hospital before the cyclopean concrete. Could we have a video before that, and then I continue the presentation, at least to appreciate the role of the cyclopean concrete in having the channeled flow within the Nyamwamba Valley. Oh, maybe the video I shall play the video after the presentation. Now, implementation of the catchment management measures. First of all, we appreciate afforestation. Afforestation, most of the hills were highly degraded. That is an example of Kogele Hill before restoration. And we're now encouraging tree growing within the catchment, whereby trees are actually nurtured, are taken care of. Afforestation is quite very critical. First of all, it helps in reducing the runoff of the water. The speed at which the water was flowing into the valley is highly reduced. And then it also helps in reducing the sedimentation of the river, and also increases on the infiltration of water as drains. So afforestation was quite very critical as one of the catchment management measures that we employed as a ministry within the Nyamwamba Valley. The other was stabilization of the river banks. Here, The first picture shows before we actually had the intervention of a highly degraded Nyamwamba river bank. It was quite very bare. It was free access. People actually, people were taking their cattle for getting for watering at within the river. So it was highly degraded as a result of course, so many other factors. It was being used as a farmland, but when we came, we sensitized the people, we demarcated the river buffer zone, 30 meters were demarcated, and the second picture shows bamboo that has actually taken root and stabilized the 30 meters of the buffer zone. The third picture shows, this was a picture taken after the June 2023 floods, that actually gives you an insight of the role of bamboo in stabilizing the riverbank. It shows a highly established root zone that holds together the soils. And this is quite very critical in avoiding the collapsing of the riverbank. So this shows that the bamboo was actually playing its key role on where it was actually planted, holding the soils together. This other picture, this other pictorial shows the communities, first of all, being trained in the soil and water conservation techniques. The communities were trained in these techniques and then also created awareness on the role of these soil and water conservation techniques. First of all, to reduce on the runoff. Most of the issues within the Nyamwamba Valley, the flooding, is as a result of the water velocity flowing down at a fast rate, not being retained within the catchment. And with the soil and conservation techniques, of course, we have reduced soil erosion, and we're also improving the water quality through these catchment management measures, and then increasing infiltration. As it rains, water percolates down, and we reduce on the flow. We increase on the residence time of water within the catchment. And the third pictorial that shows some of the ripple benefits of the soil and water conservation, where we have actually had and seen improved coffee yield as a result of the stabilized slopes with the soil conservation. Water is being retained, the moisture content is being improved within the catchment, and this is translating to a better and improved yield. This actually shows the local communities within the catchment where we had aquaculture enterprise being developed. Of course, we take in mind that most of the people within the catchment, those that supposedly had land within the 30-meter buffer zone, groups were formed, and alternative income generating activities were quite very critical in reducing the pressures of the riparian community members onto the catchment. So aquaculture was one of the issues that was one of the critical AIGs that was being promoted so that the pressure on the catchment was lessened. And of course, as we all know, that you cannot stop a poor person from degrading the catchment. So having some of the local people being in green enterprises is very critical. Enterprises that are symbiotic to catchment conservation. Enterprises that, such as aquaculture, that will pick water directly from the river system. So they will be at the forefront. If they want water in their fish ponds, then they have to protect the catchment. So these are some of the AIGs that were being promoted. The other one is the APRA. The APRA, the local communities were trained, first of all, in setting up the beehives. And then we also had the Kasese Municipality MP officiate the handover of some of the beehives that were given out to the community members. So the community members were trained in siting of the beehives, they were trained in harvesting of the beehives, they were trained in the value addition of the honey that was being collected. They were trained in also marketing. They skilled them in marketing skills. So most of the communities have been able to actually harvest honey and sold at the market. And they also trained, first of all, in having added value to the honey, having the bee venom harvested from the honey, but as well as sold to the outside market. which is actually more costly than the honey itself. The community members were also trained in fruit growing as an alternative income generating activity. Here we have over mango seedlings and avocado seedlings that were distributed out to the local communities. First of all, having this alternative, having fruit trees is critical, first in not only conserving the catchment, but also it brings in, fetches in money once they start harvesting most of the fruits from the seedlings that were planted. The other alternative income generating activity that was promoted was the coffee value addition. Like I earlier mentioned, most of the hills have coffee that where we promoted soil and water conservation, and this translated into an improved yield. So as a way to add value to the coffee, we set up 3 coffee processing units. One in Kichanjuchi, one in Kibandama, and the other in Mbonga. So all these have been fully established and set up. Coffee hullers, coffee processing units have been fully installed. And currently, they have a capacity of actually producing 2 tons per hour. So this is quite a value addition that the ministry imparted onto the residents within Nyamwamba Valley, but also, of course, try and increase the household income through the improved coffee value that the machines will actually be giving out. So the other, we train the local community members, especially the women, in making energy saving stoves, and more than 1,000 women were actually trained, were skilled in making the energy saving stoves, and the whole essence was to actually reduce on the carbon fuel. And the carbon fuel is derived from deforestation. Most of the household incomes within Kasese use wood, we use charcoal as an alternative, as a source of fuel, and having energy saving stoves will actually lessen on the pressure of the forests within the valley. And then they were also trained in making of the stationary stoves within the households, but also to reduce. These are examples of the models of the stoves within the households where they were trained. And then the portable stoves were made, first of all, for people within the catchment, but also as an alternative source of income, whereby the local communities that were trained can actually have them sold to the different residents in the catchment. The women groups were also trained in horticulture. And the results of the training was an improved crop yield, and this translated in improved household income. So most of the women groups, this is in the downstream part of the catchment in Kyondo, where, for example, the Kyondo Widows Group, these were fully trained in horticulture, in improved technologies, and they were actually given seeds to actually have this benchmarked on. So it has been quite comprehensive in terms of the alternative income generating activities that have been implemented. The other, ecotourism is very critical. We know Nyamwamba Valley has a tourism trail up to the Rwenzori Mountains. So the local women were, first of all, there was an exchange visit of some of the local women, of some of the local groups and women groups and youth groups from Kasese to the Godi wetland system in Kamwenge. So they were trained, but they also had to benchmark from another ecotourism site in Kamwenge on how we were actually going about the ecotourism. So ecotourism is quite critical, is quite a huge resource to the residents in the Kasese Valley, and 3 ecotourism sheds along the Nyamwamba Trail were developed. We have the first one that is near the multipurpose hall in Kasese that was fully constructed and is currently being used. The second ecotourism shed is at the hot springs. Here, the hot springs attract quite a variety of visitors, not only from Uganda, but even across the country. So this was constructed and is quite very critical in attracting, it has added much more value to the hot springs. And then we have the third ecotourism shed, almost getting towards the park. And of course, the designs were highly informed by the local people. We believe in local participation of some of these concepts. So these were highly informed by the local people, by the local content, and most of the ecotourism sheds are now filled in with products from the Nyamwamba, such as the coffee is being actually exhibited in the ecotourism sheds, and even many other more products. And the youth in Kasese have been trained. First of all, this project, we involved more than 2,000 youth within the valley. And they have been skilled, they have been trained in ecotourism, and then they have also been trained in stone development. Most of the stones that are coming in from the river, at times they were looking at this as a disaster. Now they are looking at it as a source of wealth to them. So these are some of the products that have been developed from the stones that were disastrous within the river valley, but they are now being able to have very beautiful products. We have hand wash basins, we have plates that are being formed, we have sinks, bathtubs that are being made. So the youth have been constructively engaged. Instead of going and cutting down trees for charcoal burning, now they have been trained in having some of these added products, stone value addition. And these are actually fetching at a bigger price. And one of the tourism lodges within Kasese is engaging the youth in making some of these hand wash basins. And then this slide shows a part of information sharing and communication as a part of forecasting within the Nyamwamba Valley. The ministry, in conjunction with the Imperial College of London and Red Cross, established a radar system. We realized monitoring water levels within the valley was being problematic. Whenever a surface water monitoring station would be installed, it would easily be washed away. So a radar system that captures the surface water levels, but also gives an insight, measures the rainfall, has been fully installed within the Kasese Valley. So this also gives a pictorials of what is happening at any particular point of time. Some of the pictures down actually give you an insight. Before it had started raining, this picture was taken on 17th of September, before it started raining. And then when it started raining at about 17th of September, still almost the same time, a difference of about 30 minutes, shows you heavy downpour in the Rwenzori. And this gives an insight on possible flooding within the downstream part of the catchment. And then the other picture shows a modernized rainfall station at the lower part of the catchment near the Kasese airstrip. And the other picture shows discharge measurements at one of the streams within the Nyamwamba Valley. So this picture shows, the figure shows a monitoring of rainfall at the Mutinda Rainfall Monitoring Station. And it gives, this monitors on, gives data as and when you really need it. If I want to know what is happening with the Rwenzori, I simply log in and know whether it's raining, whether it's not raining. So to give me both the amount of rainfall, will also give me a pictorial of what is happening within the Kasese Valley. And this has actually aided in establishing a local early warning system. It gives us a time window of about 2 hours to know whether it's actually going to flood within the Kasese Valley. And maybe also building up onto this, the flood that occurred recently in June 2023 had a rainfall amount of 174 millimeters. 174 millimeters compared to the flood that occurred in 2013. The 2013 flood had a rainfall amount of 98.3 millimeters. So what happened June this year was almost double what happened in June last year. So the catchment management measures have had a very significant positive step in mitigating the impacts of flooding within the river valley, and this has been based on observation data that we have actually collected. So what are some of these key lessons we have learned during the implementation of the catchment management measures? Of course, we do acknowledge that stakeholder collaboration with the district local governments, the municipality, division, and partners is very critical. We need to have everyone on board. We need to have everyone in sync. If we are able, if we are able to actually have the catchment management measures have a significant and positive impact. And then we have also testified through observation data that catchment-based water resource management is a very good approach in addressing the impacts of flooding within the river valley. And then incorporating tailor-made alternative income-generating activities in the implementation of the project provided hope. Most of the local people, we actually provided with them alternative income-generating activities, and this improved on their household income. And like I earlier said, you cannot stop a poor person from degrading. So the only way is actually empowering them economically with the green jobs. And then continuous monitoring and evaluation is quite very critical. Knowing the progress that is being made along the way, and then also trying to draw further lessons from that. So in conclusion, of course, we didn't work alone. We had so many partners. The Ministry of Water and Environment, it was very fundamental, and then the World Bank that funded the implementation of the catchment management measures, the Water Resources Institute. We have implementing partners, WWF, MIFA, Mubuga Integrated Farmers Association, and then Natural Resources Defense Initiative, and then Excel Hot Consult. These were part of the implementing partners for the catchment management measures. Then Ambitious Construction Company that did the emergency works within the River Valley, and then Red Cross and Imperial College of London that have been at the forefront in establishing a localized early warning system. Climber Mines that provided land for the construction of the coffee processing unit. And then Kasese District has been very fundamental in this. And then also have the Uganda Wildlife Authority that has also provided enormous support. And equally, the hydropower plant and many other partners have been very instrumental. So in catchment-based water resource management, we believe in partnership. We believe in working closely together with the different players. These are some of the pictures showing where River Nyamwamba comes from. These are the Rwenzori Mountains, showing some of the endangered species, and then the bit of the Rwenzoris. Thank you very much. Back to the Secretary.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Brian Guma. You had suggested to have the video. I don't know whether it is ready for showing before we open up for comments, questions. Francis, do you have the video before we open up for questions?
Yes, Doctor, I'm loading the video.
Okay.
We keep moving. Let's keep moving. Yes. We keep moving. Let's keep moving. We keep moving.
Doctor, those are the videos we had prepared for the team to
Right.
watch.
Thank you very much. Well, I hope people have got just a feel of what the situation is like. So join me, colleagues, to give a big applause to Dr. Brian Guma for the presentation. Let's just give him a big clap as we prepare to ask him questions. So you can put up your clap in any way. So thank you very much again for taking us through this very, very brilliant presentation. Now we are opening up the floor for comments, questions. We already have some comments in the chat. Maybe, I don't know, Dr. Brian Guma, whether you see the comments in the chat, are you able to read them? And maybe respond to those you're able to. We also have a number of other colleagues online, so I would want to call upon the other colleagues within the ministry and other partner organizations to be ready to supplement. So, Dr. Brian, are you seeing the comments in the chat?
Yes, Dr. Calista, I'm reading through them.
So just respond to those you're able to, and then the other colleagues will come in. I see a number of colleagues online, and also, of course, a number of other partners. Before I come to those whose hands are up, let's respond to those in the chat. Over to you, Dr. Brian.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Calista. Actually, most of the comments in the chat group compliments. We have one from John Sekajugo, who appreciates the great interventions and is happy to see the investment options of the catchment management plan being implemented. And then we have another one, Mwe is doing a great job in implementing interventions and recommended catchment management plans and livelihood of the local people is put at the forefront. And then people living around or in the catchment also need to be evicted to near places to minimize or control human activities. And then that is more of a recommendation. And then is there a plan by the ministry to implement similar measures on sub-catchments like on River Nyamwamba? Maybe this, of course, as a ministry, starting with the development of a catchment management plan is quite very critical, and this guides systematic implementation of the catchment remedial measures. So a River Nyamwamba, maybe one would need, of course, developing a sub-catchment management plan is quite very critical, and after that, that's when we can have the measures being implemented, and this will actually be done. Is it possible to document this vast experience for learning in other catchments across the country and beyond? That is a recommendation. And then the other is an appreciation. Most of them are appreciations. And then very good presentation. Please throw some light on the issue of pollution, water quality as a result of flooding, especially the cobalt loads. Thank you, Carol, for that question. The stockpile that was put near the recreation center, we've had that was also another critical hotspot area where we did structural measures. And as a ministry, a comprehensive study on the water quality within the Nyamwamba Valley has been done. And water quality varies both in space and time, spatially and time. But this was done about a year and a half ago, where the results showed that there was actually most of the heavy metals were within the allowable limits, loads within with the waters that were sampled at that time. So, but structural measures in trying to protect the stockpile were done near that stockpile. And then the other questions were also complements. Any monitoring mechanisms in place to evaluate the effectiveness of these implemented strategies? The monitoring mechanisms, of course, we have. First of all, we are having a routine monitoring strategy that we have put in place to ensure that the effectiveness of the different management measures is measured. And this has been testified with the recent flooding that is of June 2023, where the rainfall amounts that were received on that day were almost double the rainfall amounts that were received in 2013 that caused a major flood. So there has been a very significant positive response from the management measures that have been put in place in regards to the flooding within the River Valley. So, of course, continuous monitoring and having observation data will be continuous as we measure the effectiveness. But at least we have had a very positive response in what we have actually done. Thank you for the great work. We need more such interventions in most prone flood and landslide areas. And also, most importantly, we need more monitoring stations in these areas. That is a recommendation that we take note of. But of course, as a ministry, we have monitoring stations across major surface water bodies. And the Nyamwamba has provided a very good case scenario. Most of the rivers originating from the mountainous areas, we are now going away from the traditional monitoring to the radar system. So it has provided with us a very good case example of actually having much more technology in trying to monitor surface water levels within most of the mountainous areas. Madam Faima, thank you for the informative presentation. And then the last one from Collins Tweheyo, soil conservation structure, forestation, agroforestry should be scaled up to cover the steepy hill areas of Nyamwamba, continuous tillage on the steep slopes. So this is more of recommendation, and maybe what the catchment management measures that were done within the Nyamwamba Valley cover approximately 15% of the whole land, of the whole catchment. So scaling up is quite very critical, but also trying to mobilize funding for scaling up is also quite another critical issue that we need to follow up. So thank you very much. Those were some of the questions that were in the chat group. Back to you, Dr. Callist.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Brian, for the responses. I want to alert the other colleagues also to be ready later on to share what is going on in other parts of the country, just briefly, so that people can get to know really what is being done in other catchments. Let's go on to get questions. I see some hands up. Let's start with John Sekajugo. After that, we'll go to Nelson Nwahereza, and then after that, we'll go to Kato Kefa. So let's start with John Sekajugo.
Thank you very much, Dr. Callist, and thank you, Dr. Brian, for the very wonderful presentation, and the ministry at large for the good interventions. Dr. Brian, you started with the background that was showing, of course, that in the past, the river system used to be desilted. I've been doing research in Nyamwamba, and I was wondering, now that anyway, I don't know, you're doing some intervention. Now that we seem not to have the capacity to regularly desilt the river, is it still worth keeping those offices and the settlements within the original river course? Don't you think such settlements within the original river course need to be relocated? And then the other last question. I've been looking at Nyamwamba, and most times when the river floods, you find the flooded area is far beyond the 30-meter buffer. And when I was looking at the system built to maintain the water flow, even with that huge downpour, you would see the water levels already almost reaching the level of the constructed embankment. Do you think the 30-meter buffer is still worth maintaining, or we may need to increase the buffer area of the river system to extend the likely settlement? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Take note of those comments. Let's continue. Nelson, come in, then after that, Kefa, and then we'll go to Josephine. And then Brian will respond to those, and then we take on another set. So over to you, Nelson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Calist, and thank you very much for incredible presentation, Dr. Brian. And Ministry of Water and Environment is doing an incredible job in addressing the flood risk in the River Nyamwamba water catchment. Taking a look at the nature-based solutions for flood risk reduction intervention you are undertaking, for like afforestation and then energy saving cooking stoves and restoration of the heating. In addition to these interventions, to adopt these nature rules like tree planting or afforestation of their degraded privately owned land, and what could have been the response? What could be the rate of adoption of these NBSs? Or only you have limited them in the 30-meter river bank, or what you call the buffer zone? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nelson. Let's move on, Kefa.
Thank you, Dr. Brian and Karis, for this presentation regarding the River Nyamwamba. We are very happy that the Minister of Water has taken the initiative to address the challenges that are being faced by the River Nyamwamba in Kasese. One of the things I would like to emphasize is basically the issue of the settlement, because even last year and June this year, we have noticed that there is a loss of human beings. Some normally die during the flood, and also we lose our biodiversity also has declined. So I propose that maybe we look at the settlement program so that in the future we avoid such a loss, given the fact that it started in 1966 and it's almost 57 years, and it has started occurring every year. Then another aspect is that I have seen your 11 measures that you have put in place. I would be happy if you had given the percentage of the population within that area who have benefited from these measures, and also their attitude towards environmental conservation. Lastly, I would like to encourage Dr. Brian and the team to ensure that these measures are applied to other areas that are affected by floods, especially in hill areas like Mount Elgon. We have Gezi region where the landslides have become a serious problem, especially during the rainy season. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Kefa. Yes, Jocelyn, and then Dr. Brown will respond, and we take another set.
Thank you, Dr. Brian, for the presentation. Well, my biggest concern is about these places that are being washed away. We realized that the ministry would have gone on ground and it looks at these places, it monitors them early enough, then put measurable ways of controlling all these. Because now we are coming in to solve the problem that has already happened. And it may not stop here. Even other places are still going to go through the same. So please, the ministry, let's go on ground. We got these places, we know all these places that are hilly, that are most likely to have the same thing happen. And we do first things first. If we are to put all these measures, we put them earlier so that we conserve our environment. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So Dr. Brian come in, and then after that we can get a few other people to comment. So go ahead to respond.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Kalist. The first question was from John Sekajugo, where he actually said whether the 30-meter buffer zone is actually enough. We entirely do agree with you. Of course, by then, during the classification of the rivers, Nyamwamba was classified within a 30-meter buffer zone, but we have now actually come to realize that it actually needs more than the 30 meters. It needs even about 100 meters. And something that can actually, of course, it can come, it's a talk that can be initiated so that it is gotten into the 6th schedule where it is actually a 100-meter buffer zone. Of course, now the impacts of climate change have actually disoriented the buffer setup for the river system. And then the other question, of course, whether we still need the mining offices. Of course, this is a question that I may not fully address, because the mining offices, this is actually Ministry of Energy, but of course they have plans. There are plans to have the mining resume, and they would still need the mining offices right setup. But of course, something that can come up as recommendation that mining offices were within the river valley, but it's something that we can actually bring it more as a recommendation, but putting in mind that mining may resume anytime and they would still need the same space. So maintaining the river system is something that one would actually need to champion and advocate for to avoid flooding within the river valley. And then Mr. Nelson mentioned on something on the rate of adoption of the nature-based solutions. We implemented reafforestation on both communal and public land. We didn't not only necessarily look at the buffer zone, but we also reafforested communal and public land, and more than 1,000 hectares were reafforested. So the local people were heavily consulted, and the rate of adoption, some of, like, for example, soil and water conservation measures, where people have actually been able to see the benefits in terms of improved crop yield vis-a-vis where they haven't done the soil conservation. So this has been adopted and duplicated by the neighbors. So for where we did the pilots, at least there's a duplication for the nature-based solutions such as soil conservation on the other gardens. So this is being duplicated within the valley. And then Mr. Keifa mentioned on the issue of settlement within the river valley, where we've had human loss and loss of biodiversity, and he was proposing for a resettlement, and then what has been the percentage of the population that has benefited from the catchment management measures. On the issue of human loss, during the June 2023 flooding, at least we're able to score. We're able to have one success. We didn't have loss of life within the river valley. So that was our biggest success, putting in mind we protected critical infrastructure and critical communities. And the volumes of water were double. The rains were double of those that created a loss of life in 2023. So at least there was a very big positive impact on the management measures that were put in place. And then the other was on the percentage population. More than 11,000 people benefited directly and indirectly from the catchment management measures within the Nyamwamba Valley. Directly, we had about 4,000 people, about 6,000 people that benefited directly. And then indirectly, that's when we had about 11,000 people. So at least most people within the catchment have benefited directly or indirectly. And then the other from Jocelyn, places being washed away, and then she also wanted to have an insight on we have been doing this as post. But I want to give assurance to Madam Jocelyn that we have developed a number of catchment management plans. First of all, planning is quite a process, and knowing where we are and knowing where we want to go is a process. And for most of the catchments in the country, we have developed these catchment management plans that gives us that details of where I want to go as a ministry, what we want to do within these catchments. And then the catchment management plans, of course, are quite comprehensive. They map out hotspot areas that need catchment remedial measures. So it gives us a guide on implementation. And of course, maybe the other issue is funding that is sometimes a little bit limited. So implementation is usually guided by the funding process. So Dr. Kalis, those are most of the questions that were answered, that were asked by the participants. Thank you.
Okay, now before we continue, I want to find out whether the other team members that have been key on doing this work on the ground, Pasquale, if you have any addition, any comment, Douglas, of course we have Andrew and the rest of the team, Rita. Anybody who has any issue to supplement on what Dr. Brian has mentioned before we take on additional comments? Pasquale, any comment, any addition, or Douglas, you are there? I just wanted you have been people on the ground supporting the work as well. So if there's any supplement, I wanted you to come in now. Any of you having any addition to make to what has been raised?
What they are doing is...
Farida, can you? Farida, please, we want to remove you if you don't behave. So, okay. Now, let me see. Engineer Therem, do you have any addition to make? Farida, please, Farida, I will remove you if you don't want to behave. Douglas, I see you are there.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. And thank you, Dr. Brian, for the presentation. Well, Dr. Brian has exhausted everything that has been done. However, one other initiative that we are trying to add on board as Albert Water Management Zone is trying to make sure we do make documentation of these different events and having, say, footage like photos, videos that are taken before or during the event, basically, so one can easily tell the magnitude, say, from the footage or photo, as we try to document and get a better understanding of these flooding events within the Nyamwamba catchment. Otherwise, Dr. Brian has covered literally everything that has been done, and I appreciate him for the great presentation. Thank you.
Okay, right. Engineer Theremo, any addition? Again, on any of the issues that have been raised, as I wait for hands to be put up from the floor. Over to you, Engineer Theremo.
Okay, thanks, Chair, Dr. Kalist, and the presentation. It was really informative for those who have not been part of this. But for us in the ministry who have been part of this assignment, we have actually even learned so much because, and I would like members online to really follow suit and ensure that we understand how things are done. We have learned that for us to succeed, we have to invest a lot of resources and time in engaging stakeholders, building their capacities, changing their mindsets. So if we do this in every community engagement, then we are sure that our interventions will first of all be successful, but also will serve the purpose and will be sustainable. Community engagements, training, capacity buildings, but above all, mindset change. We realize that most of these community members are doing what they are doing for a number of reasons. Some don't know that they're actually doing something wrong, but also others don't even have other options. What would they have done anyway? So the project understanding these communities and why they are degrading these catchments is the key in ensuring that we come up with the sustainable solutions, not only in Nyamwamba, but in all other catchments where we are having these initiatives and where we plan to have them. During the preparation of the catchment management plans, that's where stakeholders start their roles. They come at that level, they understand what is affecting them, they plan for their own catchment, how they would want it to be. Now, when it comes to implementation, these are the same communities who will already be implementing what is supposed to be done to restore the catchment. So, Chair, I believe that for all of us who are in this webinar, the first things first is, even if you had resources, but the approach matters. We are supporting communities to restore their own catchments. We actually don't go there to restore for them, no. We empower them, train them, sensitize them, to help them do the work by themselves so that once we leave tomorrow, they are able to even replicate the same work in other parts of their land where the project has not covered. So, Doctor, I thought I should say this to ensure that the processes are the key and the procedure is also the key. But also, of course, as Guma said, the project has really had a number of impacts. Right now, as I talk, there's a lot of the livelihoods have helped a lot. Anybody planning to develop any project should invest more in ensuring that the benefits by stakeholders and communities are sustained. Once that is done, then you're sure that your objectives of the project will keep sustained. Thanks, Doctor.
For the other comments or questions are coming in, just maybe to also provide some clarification on a few issues. Just to mention to you, those of you who are not fully aware of the kind of work the ministry is doing. In the country, we have 32 catchments. We have prepared catchment management plans for 22 catchments in the country. We are now remaining with 10 to cover the whole country. And the catchment management plans are guiding interventions. So we are having interventions going on in most of the catchments in the country. So Nyamwamba is one of them. We're having the intervention going on in Mpanga, in Ruiz catchment, in Aswa, in Albert Nile, in Aoja, in Porogoma, and all the others, in Karamoja and all of that. So again, I see online a number of partners that we are working with in these various catchments. So what we are presenting here for Nyamwamba doesn't mean that we are only working in Nyamwamba. The experiences we are having in Nyamwamba are now being rolled out. Actually, before I even worked in Nyamwamba, we already had worked in some places in Aoja, in Maziba catchment, in Aswa. So we are working in various parts of the country, and we continue to run, improve the way we are doing things. But at the heart of what we are doing is the stakeholders. We believe that the stakeholders should be in the driver's seat to guide the interventions and ensure that whatever is done is owned by them. And that's the key. So the experiences we are having, the implementation of these measures is being rolled out. Also have additional work being done in sub-catchments, in micro-catchments, and overall catchments in the whole country. The experiences we are having in Nyamwamba are being documented right now so that we can learn from them. As we do in other areas, we recently completed a project funded by Adaptation Fund called Eureka, and we have documented experiences where we have also created water and environment cooperatives, and last month we had a presentation on that. So we continue running, we continue looking at the best practices here and there so that we can improve the way we are doing things. So again, just to let you know, and we have produced quite a lot of documents, which some of them are already on the ministry's website. Now, specifically, I think Jocelyn raised an important issue where why are you coming to address the do post-mortem? Yes, you are right, Jocelyn. Of course, if we had resources, we would be working everywhere in the country, and Uganda would not be as poor as we are. So the challenge we are having is we are a poor country. We don't have resources to really work everywhere. That's why we can do this much, but again, we are saying we need more money. Hopefully, when oil starts flowing, then we'll be richer and do more than what we are doing. But the challenge is not that we don't know what to do. The plans are there. Even in Nyamwamba, what has been done has not covered the whole catchment. So the challenge is really the resources, but we believe that we can do more with the resources that we have. I think there was an issue Kefa talked about people dying, and I think Dr. Brian mentioned, for the first time this year, and I don't know whether there's anybody from Kasese, I had hoped that our partners in the local government and municipality would be there. For the first time this year, nobody died. Why? Because people had been moved out of the flood-prone areas because of the demarcated areas, but also they had been moved and been given alternative livelihood options. But also some of the intervention gabions and the emergency works we did, the desilting, also the planting of the riverbanks with the bamboo helped to reduce the speed at which the water was moving, but also the extent to which the flood water would go. So my thinking is that if we have measures to reduce the rate of flow, the speed at which the water is moving, and we store it through soil and water conservation measures, through tree planting, through restoration of the riverbanks, even the 30 meters might not be covered. But right now, water is coming and there isn't anything to stop it. So I think the intervention that I put in place are already indicating that a lot can be done, that even when there may be people have not been moved, but they can be protected. Of course, moving people is not easy, and the Kasese district and office of the Prime Minister have been looking into that. But if you know the area, there is so much that needs to be relocated. People are many, infrastructure is a lot. So again, as we think about moving the people, we need to know that it's a big number, and of course, the implication of moving them is a concern. Right now, as a ministry, we are developing operation and maintenance strategies so that we can have mechanisms to have the river cleaned regularly. So we have developed a strategy for doing that as an emergency measure. We are now planning to do a comprehensive study to look at how we are going to address the challenges of River Nyamwamba. So we have a study now. We're also looking at the social and environmental impacts of all of that. So through that, then we take action. But according to the catchment management plan, we also have proposals to construct some check dams upstream. And I saw Faima, you asking about the challenge of flooding coming from Rwenzori. Yes, solving that problem is not just going to be done by cleaning the river, protecting the river bank. We also have to check what is happening up in the mountains. Again, we have been discussing with UWA to see how we can restore those areas that were affected by the degradation there, but of course there was fire burning where the area is quite exposed. So what has been done is, I must say, a drop in the ocean. A lot more still needs to be done, but I think what we can learn from this is that something can be done to make the situation better. That's basically what I want to highlight, but a lot more needs to be done. That's why we still need more partnerships, more collaboration with you. We need researchers to come on board and help us to study this in detail. We also need to implement measures to measure impact, monitor impact, so that we can see how we are actually benefiting from these measures. So I just wanted to highlight that we are not yet there. This was more or less a pilot, but it's already showing that a lot can be done. So I want to leave it at this, and then maybe get Dr. Brown. I see some comments in the chat. If there's any that you hadn't responded to, you can respond to it. Otherwise, if there are some people with additional questions, comments, you can put up your hands, but respond to those in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kalist. I'm going through the chat. Most of them, I'm seeing their compliments. There's one from, they need a copy of the presentation. Yeah, the Secretariat will have the presentation shared. I'm seeing one from Dr. Luima, complimentation. And then there's also one from Francis. What financing mechanism did you use among the community to roll out the catchment restoration interventions? The financing mechanism, like Adalia mentioned, the implementation of the catchment management measures was being funded by the World Bank, and the ministry procured funds to implement most of these interventions. And the local communities were hired, the local people were hired by the farms to implement. It was local content. So we used the local people, first of all, to implement the soil conservation techniques. We used the local people to demarcate the riverbank. Even most of the seedlings were locally procured. So we encouraged a lot of local content, and that's how the financing was actually being channeled. And then the other thing that we actually re-emphasized was the formation of groups. We believe in numbers, you can actually move mountains. So the formation of groups was actually very critical. And some of the groups that were being formed for the labor that was meant to be paid to them in cash was being now channeled to a group. So those are some of the innovative financing mechanisms of how money from the procured farm that we called down up to the lowest person. So we highly encouraged the local content. And then I'm seeing there's one from, there was also another, it's more of a compliment. And then I'm also seeing they are recommending John Sekajugo to provide to leverage on his experience in the Nyamwamba and also aid in the developing of an early warning system using the geo observers to report possible events. To report possible events. Of course, we believe in partnership, and something that maybe a talk that we can actually try it as much as possible to get into. So, Mr. John, we can actually come and leverage from your expertise on how we can use these geo observers to report possible events. And then Kato was the complement, and then Francis Ogwang wants the copy of the catchment management plans shared. These are public documents and they will be shared. And then Mr. Lugowa is asking for partnership to plant trees within the Nyamwamba Valley as a community-based volunteer group. So, Mr. Lugowa, you're highly welcome. I will reach out to you. Maybe you could share your contact with me, and then we'll reach out to you so that we see how best we can escalate this talk. And then the other is requesting for a recording, and then there's also a response to Collins. And then Wilbert, what success factors can you highlight briefly apart from innovative financing mechanism? And I think to me now, with what Wilbert is posing, what success factors, and to me, having everyone getting involved through the catchment-based water resource management model has been quite a driver, has been quite a good factor in ensuring that we have everything successful. So apart from the innovative financing, of course, catchment-based water resources management model provides a framework of involving everyone. Right away from the politicians, we had a lot of political goodwill, we had a lot of local goodwill from the people. So that drive of having everyone being involved from the grassroots was a very huge success factor that aided in the implementation of the various catchment management measures. And then Patrick Osbert Kanjire, what's being done to reduce the risk of cobalt tailing on humans, environment, and other lives? Like I earlier mentioned, where the stockpilings are, we had physical river maintenance. We had an embankment as a result of the dredging, or as a result of the maintaining of the river channel put towards the copper tilings. So that has been done. And also in light to the study that was done by the ministry, the concentrations of the heavy metals within the Nyamwamba Valley was actually similar to the concentration of all heavy metals in the other river systems. For example, Rimi, Nyamugasani, all the concentrations were almost the same. So from that study, it postulates that there is actually a minimum impact on the stockpilings, on the water quality of the river. So the study was done by the ministry. And then Madam Lillian, can we continue having thorough sensitization of community about voluntary tree planting? Something that we actually do agree. Catchment-based is a continuous process whereby continuously sensitize the local communities on the benefits of afforestation, the benefits of soil and water conservation. It is a continuous process and something that we take up as a recommendation, but something that we shall continuously be doing as a part of also our monitoring and evaluation after the project. And then Mr. Brian Ngure, very insightful presentation where there are opportunities for student researchers to build their capacity. Will this be possible in the future? How can young water professionals get involved. Yeah, of course, this is quite, of course, we believe in capacity development, and the ministry has a Water Resources Institute that usually provides some of these short tailored trainings. So I would want to encourage those online that let us keep on taking up opportunities for capacity development through the Water Resources Institute. And then Francis, I realized in one of your catchments that the community had been adequately sensitized. Kindly ask these consultants to carry out adequate sensitization and prepare the community. It's not clear, but it was quite comprehensive. At the start of this project, we had a comprehensive community awareness raising campaigns, and even up to today, the awareness is still being created on the impacts of the different catchment management measures that are being set up within the Kasese Valley. And then, okay, those are the questions that were online. Doctor, back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I see John Sekajugo. I see you posted in the chat, but you have your hand up. So if you have an additional comment, you can raise it, and then we see whether there are additional responses.
Thanks, Dr. Kalist and Brian. I was just responding on what Collins put, and just to inform Dr. Brian, we have been monitoring the occurrence of landslides and floods and other hazards in the Rwenzori and South and the Kigezi regions using geo-observers or citizen scientists whom we have trained locally from communities to report these hazards using mobile phone technology. And at least I'm happy with the ministry now, what we are is solving what we have been grappling with, especially with the monitoring of rainfall upstream of the major rivers coming from the Rwenzori. I think with the reportings of these hazards that occur, and now the more precise monitoring of the rainfall, if we are able to partner, we can easily at least establish threshold and know which rainfall amounts are capable of triggering off landslides and floods, and therefore again be able to improve our monitoring systems. That's what I wanted to say. But of course, I know where Dr. Brian sits. I can always reach out and we discuss. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you, John. Actually, maybe just to build on what you have raised again for the benefit of everybody who's online, the Ministry of Water, through the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Water and Environment, has written, or actually did it early this year, all the universities that teach courses related to water and environment and climate change, and I think almost all universities do that, requesting for collaboration. And he did indicate in communication that he would want us to bridge the gap between the universities, the academia, and ourselves. And he offered to provide a number of things that the universities can get their students to do their research on our various projects, utilize our data, utilize the facilities we have, and work with our people on the ground. So all of these projects we are talking about are candidates for research, either students at undergraduate level, at master's or PhD level, so that you can bring in that knowledge, that learning. And I'm happy that you are working on citizen science. It's a new area of work, but something that we need to integrate on this. We have so far had discussion with about 5 universities. We are continuing to get to discuss with our universities. And we want to make sure to bridge the gap so that by the time the students come from the universities to come to work, they already have practical exposure, but also the lecturers who are teaching actually have opportunities to also utilize the practical experience on the ground. So again, he has also offered that some of the staff of the ministry can actually be guest lecturers and bring in these practical experiences. So again, Mountains of the Moon is one of the universities, and for us, we are looking really at this as an opportunity to ensure that we bridge the gap. We already, universities, we understand, have been given resources for research, and we have already had some discussion with Makerere University. so that once those researches are being designed, then we work with them to make sure that they can help us to address these challenges. So that's something that I really would want the team to take advantage of. I think in terms of involving the students on Nyamwamba work, maybe Dr. Brand, something which I didn't highlight, but which I can highlight, is that the work that has been done, actually, we deployed all our our staff. We also had graduate trainees. Those who had just finished university, so they have been part of that work. So as we're building capacity, so we are not talking only about building capacity of the students, but we're also building capacity of those in the early career so that they can get the skills. So we attached a number of people, each of the, we had, I think, 3 service providers, no, 4 service providers, and each of those we attached a minimum of 3 people so that they can run from that. So that capacity building has been key, and we continue to do it on all our projects. Some of the service providers we are working with online already can confirm that we have attached a number of our people to work with them so that we can build capacity, because we feel that practical capacity on the job capacity building is key in this regard. Mr. Kahanjire, you raised the issue about the risk caused by cobalt stockpiles. Yes, while the research has been done, but we are a bit concerned about the accumulation. For example, all these cobalt is being sent down to Lake George. One of the things I've been discussing with the Kasese Cobalt Company Limited, to see whether we can actually put there a barrier all around. We have a barrier there, but it's not covering the whole area, so that we can stop the stockpiles from being reached away into Lake George. Ministry of Energy has been looking for an investor to re-extract cobalt. They haven't been successful, so we had hoped that the investor would extract the cobalt. So it's still something I would really call upon even the researchers maybe to take interest in, so that we can look at in that regard. Then just maybe something which would be of interest again to the team here, which is being done within a framework of the Water Resources Institute. Right now, as I speak, we have a mentorship program going on for ladies, but we started mentoring ladies within the ministry. Right now, we have 60 young ladies in the early career undergoing a mentorship program for 6 months. We have already mentored 90 ladies, so now we have another 60. Actually, they started today and they are already having their session going on. But we had also men complaining, so we have young men also starting next Wednesday. We have another about 40 young men. Again, we are starting from within the ministry so that they can be mentored in leadership and also in the technical aspects. So they will be mentored by people who have made it in their career, so that they can also learn from them and be able to move. The other thing, of course, what we're having today, the monthly webinars, every last Friday of the month. Again, we want to request those of you who would want to share. Today, Dr. Brian has shared, but we want you out there to come forward and share your work. It's not by the ministry only. So Francis Kizito, who normally sends you information on these webinars, reach out to him. He has the form you can fill so that we can share, because we feel there is a lot of work being done in the country that is not known. So I want to challenge all of you. Let's share the work we are doing. That's how people can learn. That's how we can do better. The other thing, of course, is we are having also a program for people who have retired, but not tired. And we continue to use them to support the sector. And these are going to be key. A number of these are going to be key in guiding the mentorship for young ladies and men, and also supporting the various areas. So I just felt that I should share this, but also request you really to be ready to share the work you are doing so that we can all learn from it. Let me see whether there's anybody who has any other comment, question. If you see somewhere. There's a comment from Stema. We have a lot of research conducted on River Nyamwamba, but we have not obtained an opportunity to share our findings with the ministry. So now I think, Enoch, you have heard from me. We want to hear what you are doing. So reach out to Francis Kizito, who normally sends these communications, so that you can book space. We would be happy to have you next month or the following months, so that you can actually share with us. Siriba is saying, my concern is about planting along the river bank and maybe constructing some structures upstream. How long will this planting and construction take with the rainy season pattern in Uganda? Then how does it, what does it need to be part of a women sensitization program? No, we are mid next year, mid next year, we want to open up those outside the ministry. So right now, we want to cover the ladies within the ministry, but next year, we want to open up so that we can have the mentorship program rolled out to the outside world. So hold on, we are now covering the team from within the ministry. So Dr. Brian, any other comments? Any other comments from anybody before we bring this webinar to an end? Anybody who has any final comment?
I have my hand up.
Okay. Oh, yes, Mr. Patrick Kahangile, yes, take the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kalist, and the presenters and all these people who have participated in discussions. Is there any medical reports, because we're getting water resources, but how about health of people? Do you have doctors doing research on some of the effects of flooding? Especially, I'm worried about the copper tilings and all that, because they have been in that area for a long time. There should be some effects. Is there any research and findings that also you can integrate them in the water resources management plans? You heard me?
Continuing, yeah, go ahead. Yes, Mr. Kahangile. No, I think we don't have this board online who is doing this research. Maybe this is something you can get back to, get in touch with us on. But otherwise, we are going to get in touch with the School of Public Health, Makerere University. I know they have been doing some work there. But if anybody knows anybody who has been doing this research there, you can share with us. I know there is a program in Makerere that was being designed to do some similar work, and we provided them some guidance. But I think it's an important issue at the end of on what is happening there. So let's take note of this. We'll take it up, and we'll be able to share some information as we get it. John Sekajugo, I see your mic is on. You still have a comment?
No, I think I just forgot to close my mic.
Otherwise, okay, no problem. So, Dr. Brian Guma, any final comments, remarks? I see Paul Yima, you have a comment. I see your mic is on. You might be having information on the health research. Yes, go ahead, Paul.
No, just a comment. Thank you very much indeed. I also just want to add my voice to thank Dr. Kuma for the impressive presentation. Now, my question is, there's another river, Nyamwamba, in Kasese, and there must be some activities going on. Is there anybody who's trying to compare the two studies on Nyamwamba and Nyamwamba? And we will reach out to people who are doing some work on Nyamwamba and see if we can compare the two. Is it possible that the interventions now presented by Dr. Guma could be applicable to Nyamusagani as well? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. So, Brian, can you comment on that? What is happening in Nyamgasani? Anything comparable? Just respond to that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Paul, for that quick concern or comment. The ministry is currently developing a comprehensive catchment management plan for Nyamgasani. And to me, this forms the base of implementing catchment remedial measures. So and of course, it tailor-makes the remedial measures. Each catchment is quite unique in its own way. So they developed the development of the plan that is highly consultative from the lowest person, gives out remedial measures tailor-made for that catchment. And currently, yeah, the consultant is about to submit is actually submitting the draft catchment management plan, and this will actually be shared with stakeholders for critiquing, review, and providing in comments. And in regards to what the ministry is also doing in Nyamgasani, we had the ministry, in addition to the development of the plan, is also setting up a water supply system that is within the Nyamgasani catchment that is going to supply water for the residents in and around Bwera. So that is just a quick response to Mr. Paul. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. Actually, right now we are developing a strategy for integrated water resources development and management in the whole of Albertine region, and we are giving special priority to the Rwenzori region. We are trying to develop a strategy on how we can actually manage and develop water and related resources within the Rwenzori region. You see, there are many rivers that come from the Rwenzori region. So we now are trying to look at the Rwenzori region holistically. We see how we can protect the Rwenzori, take advantage of the resources in there, and ensure that the resources become an opportunity, not a problem. So already the work is ongoing. Actually, it's probably about 80%, again, supported by the World Bank, similar to what has been done in Nyamwamba. So we expect that it is going now to provide strategic guidance on how to address the challenges. Because right now, there's a lot of pressure from different activities, but also the resource is not being used sustainably, so we want to take advantage of that. And through that, then we'll be having programs that are holistic and integrated. Lilian Anyango, yes, you raise a concern engaging student leaders in National Youth Council, UNISA, on how to engage the youth. Actually, we are in discussion with the National Youth Council. We are designing programs for the youth, so we want the National Youth Council to coordinate. We want to start webinars where we target the youth and really help them to be mentored. We also want to see how we can get the youth to be engaged actively in the program. So we're already in touch with the National Youth Council through the chairperson, the secretary, and they are already involved in our activities. So I'm sure they will be reaching out to you because we feel we need to have specific programs. We have many youth groups, and it has become difficult to know which youth group is actually representing what. So we feel the National Youth Council will be well placed to help us coordinate the youth and ensure that they are meaningfully involved. We also think about having some business incubation programs for the youth so that they can sell, they can develop their business skills, as we also mentor them to take advantage of what is available. So again, we'll be sharing that information with you in due course. Right, colleagues, I think we are going to bring this Zoom to an end, but Dr. Brian Guma, if you have any final comments, you can raise them now before we close this Zoom meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kalist. As a final jab to the presentation, of course, is the importance of catchment-based water resources management in addressing water resources challenges, not only in Nyamwamba, but across the country. It is quite critical having everyone fully involved from the grassroots, having a journey with the local people in finding solutions, but also at the time of implementation, having them fully involved. So it provides us a journey of where we involve the lowest person in addressing critical water resources challenges that include flooding and drought, not only in Nyamwamba, but also the other catchments. So that is my final concluding job, but also thanking everyone, especially the active participants that have provided questions, that have made recommendations towards the presentation, and also opened up avenues for collaboration. Thank you very much. Back to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brian, for this. We want to thank everybody for actually ensuring that you stay with us around this discussion. I want to inform you that we work through our regional offices. We have 4 regional offices, 1 office in Mbale, another one in Mbarara, another one in Lira, another one in Fospoto. Just I see a comment by Mr. Patrick Kahangire. Spreading widely with limited resources. Our approach is partnership. For example, we provide the opportunities for networking. That, for example, the youth program is being spearheaded by one of our partner organizations. So as the Minister of the Institute, we only provide that convening power, but we don't do it by ourselves. Otherwise, it would be torn apart. So all of these programs are programs we are bringing in, create space for the stakeholders to engage. So again, we would want to reach all the stakeholders, and we would want all the stakeholders to come forward and engage with us so that we can actually get all of this information over to the people. So feel free to join us, feel free to come and collaborate with us. We feel that we are stronger together. We feel that we need to bring everybody on board to contribute so that we can take advantage of the resources that we have to make this country a better place. Otherwise, thank you very much and wish you all a nice day. We again meet again last Friday of the month, that is October, when we will be having another monthly webinar. But I want again to encourage you, reach out to us so that you can book space for presentation, so that we can benefit from what you know. Again, Dr. Brian Guma, thank you very much and wish you all the success with your team out there in Albert Water Management Zone. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and wish you a nice weekend.
Same to you. Same to you, Karis, and Guma, and all participants.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Let's link up again next time. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Merci à vous. Merci.
Bye.